Today I would like to speak of persistence and also concentration. Thoughts that we identify with are the causes. Conditions are the effects. We can mold ourselves and our surroundings by steadily directing our thoughts towards the goal we have in mind. So we already have a goal, we already have a vision, something that we desire to see brought forth in reality. And every day we have tasks, projects, and things that we work on that are in contribution to realizing that vision. One of the things that I've found great joy in is showing up each day to perform these tasks or these projects and developing a higher degree of concentration. Now, this has enormous amount of benefits, not just in maintaining a lighthearted conviction based on what I'm doing in relation to my goal and vision, but it also contributes to other areas of my life as well. I notice that I tend to enjoy doing things that perhaps once I would just simply go through the motions of doing, such as eating. I also notice that I'm a lot more present and engaging in conversations. I also find, through reflecting upon the experience of what I'm doing, I'm able to gather insights and perspectives and optimization data and reflect upon these elements and figure out ways of integrating them to a higher degree to bring forth even more innovation, creativity, and so forth. So we recognize that thoughts that we identify with are the causes. Conditions are the effects, and we can mold ourselves and our surroundings by steadily directing our thoughts towards the goal we have in mind. Now, in Think and Grow Rich, we can relate this over to the section in which he discusses persistence. And so he says, persistence is a state of mind, therefore, it can be cultivated. Like all states of mind, persistence is based upon definite causes, among them these, and he states the following, which I would like to discuss. 8 of them, which I believe will be very helpful for you on your journey, as they have been for me. And I thought by going through Think and Grow Rich today, I could further instill these understandings to a deeper degree, because I recognize, and as we've been having these conversations, we recognize that we can be even more present to what we're doing, even more engaged with what we are doing, so we can maintain an ideal state of mind, a flow state of mind, and also experience how we would really like to experience the journey, which is one of commitment, lighthearted persistence. So I like to maintain flow on my journey to realizing my vision. And through working with these aspects here, I was able to find it more so through tasks, projects, and things that I'm working on. So let's go through these. Number 1 is definiteness of purpose. Knowing what one wants is the first and perhaps the most important step towards the development of persistence. A strong motive allows one to surmount many difficulties. So we're recognizing that these are perceived difficulties that we experience on the day-to-day journey, perhaps. And what we want to do is change our thinking in relation to these perceived aspects of what we call difficulties in our own mind. Because the thoughts that we identify with are the causes, and reflecting as the effects or conditions is the identification of certain thoughts. So we know that when we set a goal, when we set a vision, we have definiteness of purpose. We know where we're going. And that the behaviors, the environments, the people, the information, and so forth are some way, somehow in contribution to that vision. Reality reflects, confirms, reaffirms what is in harmony and in contribution to our vision. That's the way we want to look at it. As we continue to identify with that way of thinking, we develop a deeper degree of definiteness of purpose. It's easier then to maintain focus on the task at hand, on the project at hand, because we know that some way, somehow, that is going to lead to the realization of the vision. And as I'd mentioned earlier, if we find some optimization or areas of how we can think differently in relation to our experiences, one of the things that I like to do is I like to write those things down, because those become the things that I further identify with through self-talk, through autosuggestion. And it relates over to the definiteness of purpose. So we want to have a definiteness of purpose, a goal or vision that we are committing to. Number 2, he says, is desire. It is easier to acquire and to maintain persistence while pursuing the object of true desire. I'll relate this over to my experience. When I worked with Think and Grow Rich back in 2004, I put it to the test to see if I could get out of $50,000 debt by applying the information. Within a few years, I not only got out of debt, but I also bought my first house. I ended up actually transforming my relationship with money, prosperity, with finances. And it started with a desire. The desire was I wanted to finally, even though I was earning pretty good while I was working at that job, take care of an area of a life that was important to me, my finances. I didn't want to be an effect of condition or relationship aspects of money that were conditions of scarcity, stress, frustration. I wanted to be at the cause, and the cause being prosperity in relation to money, which means to me being able to earn exactly what I want, being able to enjoy the lifestyle that I want, and to be able to save and invest that for future growth. That's what I felt was a harmonious relationship with money, prosperity. So it developed a degree of persistence because the opportunities that showed up during the time of commitment to that vision were opportunities where I learned certain skills, developed certain habits, concentrated certain thinking patterns over to the object at hand, which through the repetition of doing that became the self-image. That's what we're looking to do. Is we're looking to go at it from the perspective of the cause within, as we discussed in Sunday's video, to observe what we are identifying with. What are we saying I am to? And so he suggests going after what you truly desire and creating a goal and a vision. See, I value the journey and the destination because I recognize now, upon retrospect and continuously working with this information, that what was being developed on the journey was a higher degree of persistence or concentration. Through the very practice of relating my thoughts over to the effects, thoughts that I've identified with, and changing the thought identification by saying I am to certain thought processes that are in relation to the vision. Now, this brings us over to point number 3, where he says self-reliance, belief in one's ability to carry out a plan, encourages one to follow the plan through with persistence. belief in one's ability to carry out a plan. So we want to encourage this in ourselves. We want to recognize that more so every day, we really do find creative, innovative ways. Be open to the possibility, the potentiality that there are ways of carrying out plans, even if for whatever the reason may be, you look back at your past and you said, I tried many things, but I wasn't able to succeed. But I'm going to commit from a different perspective this time to a higher degree of development of persistence, peak persistence. I'm going to understand different thought processes that relate over to this goal. One being self-reliance, because I know that if I can put my mind to something, I have the two gifts of speech and mind, and we're working with inner speech, inner conversation, inner dialogue in today's conversation. This kind of thinking patterns we want to identify with, and the thinking pattern being, if I can demonstrate my self-reliance by remaining committed to this task at hand, this project at hand, and seeing it all the way till completion, I will develop persistence. And this persistence is important to me because I know that it is a representation of faith. It's loyalty to my vision. I know that some way, somehow, I'm going to reveal my vision. It's going to be something that is going to be a condition of reality as a result of the vision thought processes, encouraging them. So I really do then have the ability inherent within me to carry out a plan that I receive within. I always say this. When you commit to a vision, you have definiteness of purpose. It's stimulated by desire. You then develop self-reliance by receiving plans within. Ideas, hunches, inspirations revealed within. And I have the ability to see these plans into completion because I recognize that persistence is a very important attribute that I could further reveal in myself. I have it within me. Which brings us to point number 4. Definiteness of plans. Organized plans encourage persistence. So the way I work with this is when I get an idea, hunch, inspiration, and I really resonate with it. The key word is I resonate with it because, we could have all kinds of thoughts pop into our mind. Or we could read a lot of information in books or have many conversations with others. But one of the things that we'll notice is that certain ideas tend to stand out. Those are the ones we actually find are related very directly to our vision through a feeling of resonance. And from those ideas, when we commit to them, we say, okay, that's the idea I'm moving forward with. That's the opportunity I'm going to work with, be it a business idea or doing something that would be in contribution to your vision, such as a project or an artistic expression or cultivating a certain skill. The moment you commit to it, you start to receive plans. Now, what I noticed is that through the journey of producing entrepreneurial success, career success, you gain a lot of reference experience. And certainly, based on that reference experience, you could sit down and put together a flow chart, a project plan, and have all these details in there, and you know exactly what to do. Definiteness of plans. But if, for whatever the reason may be, you don't have that level of vividness, of clarity in regards to your plans, what you do have is the first step. And taking that first step leads to a higher degree of clarity. When I reflect back on my experiences and many conversations I've had with others, I found this was universally the case. That idea, that hunch, when acted upon, brought forth a higher degree of clarity. And then as a person continues down that pathway, they develop a higher degree of persistence. Now, I trust as we're going through this, you recognize that persistence is an automatic expression as a result of a vision. Because as we go back to the beginning here, thoughts that we identify with are the causes, and conditions are the effects, and thus we can mold ourselves and our surroundings as a result of molding ourselves by the self-image that is formed via the identification of certain thought processes, which are reflected in reality, which are reaffirmations of that particular self-image. The mirror of reality is a reflection of our self-image, what we identify with. As we encourage those thought processes, what we notice is we develop a higher degree of self-reliance because we recognize that this is all happening within ourselves. Changes occur within ourselves, again, stimulated by that desire to have the vision. What we notice is further, information presents itself, definiteness of plans, received within or inspired, when encouraged, when seen all the way to completion, which is why I very much value the task at hand, the project at hand. And I brought this up in the video that we talked about, The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles, in which we said, where we are right now, that's our acres of diamonds. And from that point, the deep engagement with that opportunity at hand, we go into that state of mind. As he says, persistence is a state of mind. So it's a valuing of the experience in the now or the opportunity at hand and recognizing that is a aspect of the journey to realizing our vision, because we recognize that journey to the destination, you connect the dots looking backwards, and you're able to accurately track how every move or every step, every opportunity laid the foundation for certain understandings, realizations, and opportunities that seem to connect the dots to realizing that vision. For me, when I committed to that particular goal back in 2004, working with Think and Grow Rich, I recognized that the opportunities started to present themselves. All of a sudden, I was getting more opportunities to earn additional income. Money seemed to show up from unexpected places, as he also had discussed when he said, if you believe that money is a result of hard work alone, perish the thought, indicating that there were other ways that you were going to see money show up in your life. And it did, by doing things that I enjoyed doing. All were a result of encouraging certain thought processes, which became and continues to become the self-image. And when it becomes so integrated into this self-image, we see it all over the place. Everywhere we go, we see the opportunities. And so I would say that this process, or these aspects that he had referred to, helped me tremendously. And my trust is what we're discussing today is helping you as well. Which brings us to point number 5, accurate knowledge. So I like how he says this, accurate knowledge. He says, knowing that one's plans are sound, based upon experience or observation, encourages persistence. So plans are received within, and you know that they're sound because they're stimulated as a result of commitment to the vision. And we go through experiences, and the deep engagement and present with the project or task at hand gives us optimization data, insights, thus accurate knowledge, which develops a higher degree of self-reliance because we find it within ourselves, which also, through the process of going through this, develops a higher degree of self-reliance that we can find the answers within ourselves. Because here's the thing about it. I realize that there are many pathways to get to a destination. And if you believe that you can find a flow-based pathway that is transcendent to perhaps certain time-based restrictive ideas or space-based restrictive ideas, you'll actually be able to find it within yourself, and that's what we call the accurate knowledge. But one of the things that we find as we connect the dots looking backwards is we find our own distinct way of producing the results. And then perhaps we share it with others. And we might even be so self-persuaded that the way that we did it is the way that works for others. And while it could, one of the things that I always like to encourage on this channel is that you discover your own way. Have that courage and confidence within yourself. Allow the plans to be received within via intuition. And commit to those plans and see it all the way to completion. This will develop a higher degree of self-reliance. Because if you found yourself in situations where perhaps it was extremely challenging, you'll look back at the reference experience at other challenges that you've had in your life, and you will discover that you found it within yourself, the answers, the plans. And you'll know that when you took that step, or you've seen those plans into completion, things worked out. That's what we talk about when we refer to accurate knowledge. Now, we also want this journey to be as harmonious as possible, flow-based as possible, so we could maintain a certain presence of mind, state of mind, persistence, lighthearted persistence, so we could receive those intuitive hunches and inspirations within ourselves. And that's why we want to tie into the sixth element here, cooperation. He says, sympathy, understanding, and harmonious cooperation with others tend to develop persistence. Now, I would say this is true because if we have sympathy and understanding and harmonious cooperation with others, we will recognize what we discuss even more so in Sunday's video. Others show up to play the theater some way, somehow, in contribution to our vision. And we show up to play the theater in harmony and in contribution to their visions. So, we want accurate thinking. And the accurate thinking is understanding them, getting to know people and recognizing that they also have goals, visions, desires. One of my favorite ways to do this is I get very interested in what people truly desire, the purposes that they have, their visions. And I say to myself, I know that they are there in front of me right now because whatever it is that I have to offer, whether I'm consciously aware of it or not, or I allow my subconscious to express, it's going to benefit them. It's going to some way, somehow help them, be in contribution to them, inspire them, demonstrate something, transfer something, to be harmonious in cooperation with their goals and their vision. And I recognize that it is the same because thoughts that we identify with are the causes, conditions are the effects, and thus how I think of them from the perspective of identifying with certain thoughts in relation to them and our relationship together is a mirror reflection of how they think of me. Now, this brings me internal peace. And having this internal peace brings forth automatic, lighthearted persistence. So I trust as we're going through this, we recognize that persistence really is conviction, faith in a vision. Recognizing that our vision or our purpose, which is stimulated by desire, brings forth a higher degree of self-realization, self-reliance, to receive the plans, the ideas within, and the accurate way of understanding and cross-referencing and relating. You've heard me say this many times. See everything on the journey to realizing your vision as in harmony and in contribution to your vision. Thus, when you're having a conversation with someone, and they say something in which you think that what they said breaks your flow, we recognize that it's a thinking pattern, so we can think of it differently. For example, if someone says, you won't be able to achieve your goal because of whatever reason, you recognize that you have an opportunity right there in that moment to observe the meaning within ourselves, because we're assigning meaning to these experiences. And perhaps a meaning that you can have is that although I might have thought that way before, I recognize that I have a higher degree of self-reliance. And I have plans, and I know that by committing to my plans, I am going to get to the destination. Now, you say this to yourself within. You commit to that way of thinking to yourself within. And what you'll notice is they will change. Your environments will change. Your experiences will change, because the change happened within ourselves. And that is also practicing understanding and harmonious cooperation with others. Because we recognize that the understanding and harmonious cooperation with others is based on our thinking pattern within. As stated, as we go back to the beginning here, thoughts that we identify with are the causes. So you can think many different things. What we're interested in is what we identify with, what we commit to in our thinking, what we say I am to. Now this brings us into number 7, willpower, the habit of concentrating one's thoughts upon the attainment of a definite purpose leads to persistence. So willpower is a matter of self-reflection, reflecting on certain experiences in life and seeing those to be in contribution to your vision that will align your will over to your vision. I don't see this from the perspective of force as I used to before, way back in the days. Because he says the habit of concentrating one's thoughts upon the attainment of a definite purpose. So I just see all my experiences every day based on my thinking patterns as some way, somehow, this is in contribution to my vision. If I don't know how, from a logical perspective, I just assume that some way, somehow it is. And that continues to bring forth a higher degree of willpower, causing me to automatically do the thing that I know I wanted to do. See the plan into completion, the task into completion, and so forth. And if I do find the reason, I say it to myself. Such as the example given earlier. If someone said something to you. Or what if you do something and it doesn't turn out the way you planned it would turn out? Maybe you thought by running a certain campaign in your business, it was going to produce a certain amount of sales. But for whatever the reason may be, it didn't produce those sales. You look at that and say, what did I learn from that? What is the optimization data? How can I work with how this information is presenting itself through this experience and translate that over to a higher degree of conviction, faith, persistence? This will reveal my willpower, my ability to move forward regardless of perceived obstacles, challenges, difficulties. And the key word is perceived. It's happening from within. And finally, habit. He says persistence is the direct result of habit. So we're talking about habit of mind here, habit of thinking in a certain way. And this is a true way of thinking as we relate this over to accurate knowledge, accurate thinking. Because when you commit to a vision, some way, somehow, things, as I say this many times, reality rearranges to reflect your vision. And I trust that these aspects and the nuances that we discussed today, and we'll discuss this more so in the upcoming videos, which have been thought processes that I've identified with on my journey, and through conversations with others, I trust that these thought processes have inspired you, perhaps even encouraged similar thoughts that you were thinking like this, in which you were thinking, wow, This is a different way of thinking, but is it really true? Well, remember we talked about self-reliance and accurate knowledge? That's found within yourself. So habit. Persistence is the direct result of habit. The mind absorbs and becomes a part of the daily experiences upon which it feeds. So we're going through the day-to-day experiences, whatever it is that you do every day. And we're relating it over to thought, accurate thinking. As a result, we're finding ourselves automatically persistent, representing willpower, cooperation, revealing the accurate knowledge, committing to the definiteness of plans that are received within, thus developing a higher degree of self-reliance and bringing forth our vision. And we continue this journey again and again and again. So when a person shows up with an awareness in my life and has a desire, one of my favorite things to do is to encourage that desire as an imaginal seed, to see themselves as that person right now, so they commit to it. Because then I know all these things will happen, because I've seen this happen many times all throughout my journey, these things that he talked about here. So I trust you found this to be helpful. I recommend integrating this information, practicing it, reflecting upon your day-to-day experiences, your plans, your tasks, your projects, and even listening to this audio over and over again, because I find that as we continue to integrate this information, which is why I go back to Think and Grow Rich and books like this over and over again, perhaps some of the things we didn't hear the first few times, or even 10, 15, 30 times of listening to it, tend to stand out even more. That's usually because it's during that time that we are more inspired by certain thought processes we wanted to identify with, to be part of our self-image, to become who we are. And then we revisit this kind of information. We discover even more thought processes that were shared, which we can further integrate to maintain this lighthearted conviction, which I call peak persistence. So let's go ahead and encourage this further with some autosuggestion. We can say, I recognize that I have desires, and I encourage my desires to stimulate visions and definiteness of purpose. This brings forth hunches, ideas, and inspiration, which I receive within as plans. Committing to these plans, engaging deeply in the tasks at hand, the projects at hand, in relation to these plans, develop a higher degree of self-reliance, revealing the accurate knowledge within myself. I further encourage this in others and recognize that all show up going through the same experiences as I do. And thus I have sympathy, understanding, and harmonious cooperation with others, as I recognize that my goals, my visions are in contribution to theirs, and their goals, their visions are in contribution to mine. This reveals a higher degree of willpower, which becomes habit. I recognize that persistence is a natural state. It's a state of mind that is further cultivated through committing to my vision and seeing my goals, my visions, all the way to success in reality. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.